Sometimes the thing calling your name isn't the thing you think it is. A voice in the dark, perfectly familiar, perfectly trusted. Your mother, your brother, your friend calling from the woods. Except they were never there. Across folklore, paranormal encounters, and wilderness stories, there are entities that do not hunt with claws. They hunt with recognition, with imitation, with borrowed trust. They mimic voices, echo language, replicate familiarity. And the most dangerous part is people follow them because they sound right. Hi, my name is Steph Fitzgerald, and I'm the experience architect. I design how systems shape human experience. And this is Experience Systems, where leadership, psychology, and design converge into living systems. But on Sundays, we step somewhere darker, a little stranger, a little softer, a little more midnight, less lecture, more candlelight, more stories told too late at night. So welcome to Creatures of the Night. And tonight, we talk about mimics. Not the shape-shifting monsters, not copies of bodies, copies of voices, copies of trust. There are stories all over the world of entities that imitate people. Some appear in forests, some near old roads, some outside bedroom windows late at night. And almost all of them share one detail. They call to you using a voice you already trust. A loved one asking for help, a familiar laugh, someone saying your name from somewhere they shouldn't be. And people follow because recognition lowers defenses. That is the real horror, not the monster, the manipulation of familiarity. There's a reason so many mimic stories happen in forest or near water or at the edge of visibility, because humans navigate uncertainty through sound. In wilderness survival, people are taught something important. If you hear your name deep in the woods, don't answer immediately, especially if you're alone, because distance distorts sound. Echo reshapes direction, and panic fills in gaps. But folklore took that idea further. What if the thing calling you understood that? What if it knew exactly which voice you would trust enough to follow? That is what mimic stories feel so deeply personal. They weaponize attachment, not force, not violence, recognition. Humans are pattern-driven. We survive through recognition. Familiar voices signal safety, belonging, connection. So when something uses those signals, the brain reacts before analysis begins. That's why mimic stories feel uniquely unsettling. They bypass logic because the violation is relational. The voice is supposed to mean something, and suddenly, it doesn't. Organizations have mimics too. Not creatures, patterns. Ideas repeated without origin. Voices echoed without attribution. Narratives reshaped until the source disappears. You explain an idea, it lands softly, or not at all. Then 5 minutes later, someone else repeats it. Different voice, different delivery. Suddenly, everyone hears it. The same concept, different vessel. And this happens so often, people stop noticing, especially women, especially quieter listeners, especially quieter leaders, especially people outside the dominant frequency of the room. The idea survives, the voice disappears. And over time, that changes behavior. Because eventually, people stop asking, who said this first? And start responding only to, who made this feel legitimate? That is mimicry. Mimics don't create new language. They steal existing language and repurpose it. That's what makes them dangerous. They wear familiarity like camouflage. And systems do this constantly. Ideas get detached from context. Feedback gets reframed. Contributions get reassigned through social hierarchy. Sometimes intentionally, sometimes unconsciously, because power changes whose voice is perceived as authoritative. The same words spoken by different people do not land the same way. And that realization can be deeply disorienting because it forces people to confront something uncomfortable. Most systems are not listening equally. They are filtering, amplifying some voices, muting others. And often, the echo gets rewarded more than the source. An echo is strange. It sounds like your voice, but delayed, distorted, detached from you. And the longer the distance, the stranger it becomes. In caves, in forests, in empty halls, echoes create uncertainty about direction. Where did it begin? Who said it first? Who does it belong to now? And organizations often function the same way. Ideas bounce through hierarchy, through repetition, through a reinterpretation, until eventually the original voice is almost impossible to trace. And what remains is not authorship, only resonance. An echo becomes more believable the more time it repeats. That's true in caves and in organizations. Humans mistake repetition for truth constantly. If enough people repeat something, confidence increases, even when evidence does not. This is called social proof. And systems use it everywhere. Meetings, politics, social media, performance narratives. One person reframes the story, another repeats it, another adds certainty. And suddenly, the echo becomes reality. Not because it was true, but because enough people heard it enough times to stop questioning it. That's why stolen narratives can become so dangerous. Because eventually, even the original source starts doubting themselves. One of the strangest things about prolonged mimicry is that eventually you stop recognizing your own voice. Not physically, psychologically. You begin adjusting delivery before you speak, softening ideas, making yourself easier to reinterpret. You become hyper-aware of how your words might survive once they leave you. And that changes people, especially people who live inside systems where attribution is unstable. Because eventually, communication stops feeling like expression and starts feeling like risk management. That is a profoundly exhausting way to exist. And sometimes, the real danger is not losing credit. It's losing trust in your own voice. Because repeated mimicry creates hesitation, self-monitoring, silence. You start wondering, should I say this now? Will it matter if I do? And over time, people begin disconnecting from their own signal. Not because they lack insight, but because the system has conditioned them to expect interception. That is how systems quiet people without ever directly silencing them. The mimic is terrifying because it understands one fundamental truth. Trust is faster than fear. People rarely follow monsters. They follow familiarity. So maybe the question isn't whether mimics exist. Maybe the question is, how often have you mistaken recognition for authenticity? How often have you heard your own ideas come back to you wearing someone else's voice? And have narratives shifted simply because a different person became the storyteller? And how many systems quiet people? Not by force, but through echo. Because not every stolen voice is supernatural. Some are structural. And sometimes the most important thing you can do is learn to recognize your own signal before the room reshapes it into something else. Maybe that's why mimic stories survive. Not because we fear monsters, but because we fear disconnection from our own knowing, from our own perception, from the internal quiet voice that says something about this isn't real. And maybe the greatest danger isn't the thing stealing your voice. Maybe it's the moment you stop trusting you had one to begin with. Good night, my creatures. It's time to rise.